IVM.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I am your host Ashwin. I'm joined live and in person by my brother Varun. It has been a wild week. Wishing all our listeners a happy new year. Before I get into any more details, I will say, full disclaimer, we are on vacation. This is an episode that we weren't fully planning to record, but after India's heroics at the Centurion, we decided to. So upfront, apologies for A, the lack of video this week, and B, the audio quality. We're just recording it on a regular iPad. There's no fancy podcast microphone, but we still felt like we had to get together to debrief what happened at the Centurion. So lots of great stuff. Varun, let's start with how are you feeling? First day of the new year, and India has ended 2021 with a bang, right? We recorded our last episode with some of our listeners. If you haven't listened to it, check it out. But did they record the 2021 wrap up a little too early, you think?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, DJ was excited to do the highs and lows of 2021. And what a year it has been, right? We started off with the Sydney test early on in Jan 2021, which was kind of a moral victory for us, led us into the Gabba, where victory at the Gabba, Fortress Gabba, Gabba Ka Ghamand as they call it. We then went into the Lord's Test, the Oval Test, and it's ended with Centurion. So 4 overseas wins for India. The only time this was done previously was 2018. And guess who was the captain then?
Oh boy.
None other than Virat Kohli. So a very successful test year for Indian cricket. The only glitch seems to have been that World Test Championship final where it was tough for us. We didn't play up to the expectation, especially when you think through that year. However, I do want to say, I think the highs and lows episode may not have changed because India were favorites for this series, in my opinion.
Ooh.
So I think for me, the highs would still be Gabba.
That's a pretty big statement to say, winning at the Centurion, where we've never won before, right?
Yeah, we've never won before.
Almost no. I mean, look, we're going to get into all this, right? But the thing is, before the series started, the commentary had all been South Africa is the last real unconquered territory, right? One in Australia, one in England. I feel like you're underplaying this a little bit by saying India were favorites in the Centurion.
I mean, I think India were or are the better team at the moment versus South Africa in any condition. Yes, at home it's going to be tough. Yes, at the Centurion. Yes, with the threat of rain. Plus, let's not forget there was so much controversy surrounding BCCI and Virat Kohli leading up to this game. So what it does to his mental state, the team's mental state, you've got a new vice captain, you've got a new coach. So there's a lot happening. So Ashwin, you're right when I say that they may not have been exactly the favorites, but I think they are the better team.
Let's talk a little bit about the team before we get into it. Obviously, we're so excited. I remember the day we recorded the episode after the Gabba. There was so much adrenaline, so much excitement. Here we've given ourselves an extra couple of days, but still, as I'm thinking about it and talking about it now, it's coming back. Let's start with India's team selection. First off, before we get into the teams even, what is happening with Virat Kohli and this coin?
Yeah, suddenly he's winning tosses. It's a weird one for us. We're not used to it as Indian cricket. Now we're used to winning overseas, but we're not used to winning the toss.
Right. So let's talk about the team, right? Rohit wasn't available. Rahul and Mayank, the right call for you?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So no real debate there. Nobody's debating Kohli and Pujara. Actually, let's talk about Pujara 3, Rahane 5. I know you're not Rahane's biggest fan.
Yeah, and I think he should not have played this, especially when you have a Hanuma Vihari sitting in the wings. He was sent to South Africa with the India A squad earlier to quote-unquote prepare. And
he played phenomenally.
He played, not only was he sent, he played phenomenally. He missed the chance to play in the India home series against New Zealand. Shreyas Iyer, who was picked for that, actually performed really well. He also sat out. So you've basically just gone with Rahane time and time again. And we'll get into the first innings, but that disappointed me a lot. So the team selection I thought was perfect, barring Rahane. And for our listeners out there, I still believe in Pujara's technique to be able to win us or play according to the match situation in overseas tests. So that's why I'm a fan of Pujara. However, there's a lot of criticism for him as well.
Yeah, I'm personally not criticizing Pujara enough yet before this event. Let's talk about after later. But I understand the Rahane decision, and this is one of those tough ones. But we'll come more to the match and what he did later. Let's talk about that number 7-8 spot. Again, easy to look back and say, oh, we won, so it was fine. But there were points in that first innings where we all basically felt like, hey, Shardul at 7 and Ashwin at 8 or whatever order did Ashwin at 7, Shardul at 8 is not strong. I think I've said before, neither of them is a great all-rounder for me. Collectively, maybe they make one batsman or half a batsman or one batsman of an all-rounder, but is that the right 7 and 8 for you? It sounds like you were happy with it.
I mean, I was happy with it because Jadeja was injured.
Right.
There's no other option.
Yeah.
I think India has been very clear in their 5-bowler strategy, and it has worked. Like, nobody can look at us and fault. Nobody can look at Virat Kohli or the selection committee or the coach and fault what they're doing, right? This is our most successful test year. So if 5 bowlers has worked, 4 pacers has worked, given the fact Ashwin was not even played in England, I don't question the strategy. I just say with the personnel that they had, this was the best team.
Last question. Nishant Sharma.
Yeah.
Hard to leave him out?
I don't think so. I think Siraj is just proving time and time again that he can come and pick up the wickets, bowl long spells. I think with Shami and Bumrah, it's a given they're two of the, well, Kohli said this at the post-match, they're probably 2 of the top 3 or 4 bowlers in the world at the moment. And Siraj is doing really well. So Ishant Sharma will play, but this is where we need to grow as a team and talk about workload management, talk about bowlers backing each other. And so India smartly played the best lineup they had in the first test and got the result that they wanted.
Right. I can't think of a better way to get into the first test in detail. We could spend hours talking about it, but we know the audio quality isn't great today, so we're going to try to be a little concise. But Varun, why don't you walk us through it, right? When the toss put into bat, pretty much a dream start, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I was driving at this point when, and you know, on our family road trip holiday, and as we were driving, Ashwin kept giving me stats. And this is like, basically, the way he summarized it is that since they put the man on the moon, this is the next best thing to have ever happened.
I mean, there was so many, Twitter was going nuts with longest opening partnership since this, first 100 plus opening partnerships. Anyway, so yeah, keep going.
Yeah, so Mayank and Rahul, who are best friends off the field, got together. They put on 117 for the first wicket. It hadn't been done before. It set us up nicely. All the chatter around where one batsman short with playing Ashwin and Shardul, everything was kind of put to rest in that first session. And it was fantastic for us, right? So Mayank unfortunately went off at 60, but he was looking good, carrying on the form from the New Zealand home series. And then Pujara comes in and unfortunately gets out on the first ball he played, right? Inside edges it onto his pad, which goes up for a catch. And at this time, suddenly Ngidi is on a hat trick because he's just bowling really well. Pujara, by the way, I have to say, goes back to the dressing room and later in the day gets a pat on the back from Dravid, which was a friendly pat as you cross somebody. And netizens went crazy making memes around that. But anyway, in comes King Kohli. And Ashwin, this has been pretty much the story, right? Looks good for 35 and then gets out edging.
Like, on what is it? Did you see the post on 14th stump line or whatever? Because that ball was nowhere near where it needed to be played. And he's just got this habit every time he's gotten out after a start. It's been because he's reached for that ball way outside of him. So I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed as a Kohli fan who has been so eagerly waiting for that big one. I still believe it's right around the corner, but pretty disappointing to see him perish. But before we get into anything further, that means after Kohli's wicket, Rahane came in, added some runs on the board, and then we basically ended day one with 270 odd for 3.
Yes.
How would you assess that day one at the Centurion as a whole?
I would say India's day by far. I would have loved if India was 300 for 3, but 272 for 3, I'll take it any day, especially because Rahane was looking good at the end of day's play. So, I mean, India was on top from day one itself. And we were hoping for day 2 that we kind of come in, hit 500, and Rahul gets a big score. But day 2 was washed out.
We lost it entirely.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick break. We will be right back again with our unfortunately not great audio quality, but we will be right back to talk about what happened on day 3, which felt like a day 2, but technically was day 3. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are 0 charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into a show about crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Morning of day 3, which feels like day 2. Rahul walks in, batting on 117, I think it was. Rahane walks in, batting on in his 40s. And what happened there? Like, what happened next, right? 270 something for 3. I just felt like a real throwback, right? The next, call it, hour or so of cricket.
Yeah, it felt like one of those all too familiar India collapses. We were on top at the end of day 1. Day 3, we come out. Obviously, we need to get our focus and concentration back. Everyone's a little more kind of relaxed about it. But the South African bowlers, remember, have collected their thoughts and had a lot of discussions with their coaches. And they came out and, will you believe it, they got, I think they picked up 4 or 5 wickets in a space of 30 runs. So your Pant, Ashwin, Thakur and Shami all went in like single digits. Bumrah had some kind of resistance at 14. Siraj was not out at the other end. And suddenly, India would just about put 60-odd runs on the board and ended at 327. I remember at that time being very upset because after India got all out, they flashed on screen that the average first innings score at Centurion was 329. I mean, so after being 272 for 3 on day 1, we still didn't make the first average total.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly disappointing. And these are the crazy, like for those people who don't like Test cricket or don't follow it or don't understand it, it's these highs and lows that make it the amazing sport it is, right? From the incredible high of finishing day 1 at Centurion, 270 plus for just 3 wickets, to wrapping up 327 all up now. Before the match, if you said, hey, we bat first, make 327. So that's not bad with the bowling we have. And it turned out to be okay. But after 270 odd, it was just so incredibly disappointing. Shout out to Lugi Ngidi and Kagiso Rabada, who put in long spells, each of them bowling 24 and 26 overs and managing to pick up 9 wickets in between the 2 of them. But then, Varun, this is one thing we've talked about a little on the show. When India comes out to bowl, when you grew up in the 90s, for any of our listeners who were watching Indian cricket in the 90s, watching India bat was the dream, and you never wanted to watch India bowl, right? You would, like when you played as a kid, you would wait for batting to come. This time around, when Bumrah walks out with the shiny new red ball, you're almost more excited, right? Our bowlers have arguably won us more matches than our batsmen.
I think our bowlers have won us all the matches, if you think about it. The batsmen number 3, 4 and 5 have been averaging at like 20 over the last 2 years. So
you specifically call them the Indian middling order?
Yeah, the middling order. The bowlers have won us the game. And I've honestly, like I was telling you on our holiday road trip, that I would put on the match when Pant is around, but I would probably want to sit down and watch our bowling. And, well, boy, we're lucky we did that because Bumrah got Elgar in the first over with an unplayable ball. Shami picked up 5 wickets and was just spectacular. We call him second inning Shami.
What happened?
But I don't know what happened in the first innings this time. Siraj was very good, apart from throwing the ball back to the batsman a couple of times.
I think he hit him.
I think a couple of times. So that was good. Thakur didn't pick up. Thakur picked up 2 and went for a very high economy rate. But 2 quick things. One, Ashwin didn't pick up a single wicket. And I think that was a bit shocking to all of us, given his name is being recommended for one of the ICC Test Players of the Year, and a lot of polls are...
He's the highest wicket taker of the year.
Yeah, agree. And he hasn't played enough games. In the 1 innings he's played, in last innings of 2021, he hasn't taken a wicket. So that was an interesting one, but Ashwin's a quality player. We support him a lot. The other thing was that Bumrah was actually off the field for a long time. And Kohli alluded to this in 2 ways. One, at the post-match ceremony, he said Bumrah was off, and so they probably got around 40 extra runs. Because remember, they were not looking that. They were 144 for 7.
They were 32 for 4.
32 for 4. They had a bit of a fight back with Dickok. The 144 for 7. Well, we should have wrapped them up at 160, but they almost made 200. So those 40 extra runs, I thought may have cost us the game in terms of a win, and potentially pushed it to a draw with bad weather expected for day 5. But so Kohli alluded to that. The other thing he said was when Bumrah came on back to bowl is he gave a nice WWF reference, which is finally The Rock has come back, right? I think that was the WWF reference that got us all a little bit excited.
Yeah, it just reminds you sometimes that Kohli is kind of human in our age and just loves the same things we love, etc. So yeah, I agree with you fully. A little disappointed from 32 for 4. And what they were punch, we were saying, okay, how do we keep them to under 127 to, potentially leave follow-on territory? I'm not saying we would have been forced to follow on. It's maybe not the right move, but there's a huge moral victory in having a lead of over 200. But full credit to the South African batters, Temba Bavuma in particular, along with Quinton de Kock, put up a real fight back and got them to 197. But at this point, we're starting the second innings with a lead of exactly 130 runs. What is the dressing room conversation? There's rain around. It was a little unpredictable, a little hard to say. And oh, by the way, this was all on the same day, right? So all on day 3, we lost South Africa, or South Africa lost all 10 wickets rather. And then India comes back up to bat. So Rahul essentially batted both times in day 3. Rahul batted again in day 3. But what was the thought process? What is India saying? 130 on the board. How long do we need to bat to keep the game safe? How many do we need to make to have a shot to win? What are the permutations? Now, this is where Test cricket is a beautiful math exercise, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at that point, at least somewhere between 120 to 170 in the second innings, making it a 250 to 300. We know from past experience that nobody's ever happy with 250. So I personally knew India's not going to declare at 250. They had a weird approach to this game, but they somehow got there. They made the 170 that I talked about, 174 all out. I didn't expect them to get all out. But, I mean, the deal is that they crossed 300. They got South Africa in on the evening of day 4. And I think that was what the overall game plan would have been. I think how they got there, even India didn't plan for that. There was no business for India to lose 10 wickets for 170 on a third innings score or a day 4 pitch. That was not really troubling the batsman that much. So somewhere, I think, between great South African bowling, rushed Indian batting, basically we somehow stumbled to the 300 target, but it was not pretty.
Yeah, let's talk quickly about the approach before we wrap up and talk about the final innings, which was just phenomenal. But let's talk quickly about the approach, right? And you can fault Kohli for making 35, in the first innings because he looked good, he had gotten settled, etc. When your approach and your mindset is, hey, there's rain coming, we probably have close to enough on the board because Rahul looked decent again. Thakur put up some decent runs. Can you fault the batsman when the guidance from Dravid and Kohli was probably, hey, let's just go for it, right? And Pant went for it, made 34 in the run of ball, but none of these other guys are really hitters, etc. So can you fault them for poor scores when the mandate is to start scoring, to hit runs and get some quick runs on the board?
I mean,
an example, for example, Rahane, right? I've never seen him look so focused on hitting boundaries. He hit 4 boundaries, I think, 3 boundaries and a 6 to make 20 at almost a run a ball. I mean, that's not how Rahane plays Test cricket.
Yeah, so that's why I said I give them credit. I think they stumbled and they got there. It didn't look pretty from the outside, but maybe this was the plan. We don't care how it comes. You need to get those runs. Now, keep in mind, Pant was lucky, he got 34. He got 8 in the first inning. So if Pant didn't have that 34, everyone else would have looked very stupid. Yeah. So something clicked and we got there. But it did not inspire confidence how we got there.
And so let's talk Pant quickly. This is not the first time Pant has played this specific role. It won't be the last, right? Is this exactly the role he's in the team for? Say when you need some quick fire runs or you need to just put a little pressure on the opposition, or you need to take a target that looks like it's good enough and just make it a certainty, or is that the role he's here for? He's done it in Australia. He's done it before, batting at nearly a run and ball. I mean, that's his gameplay, right?
Yeah, I think that's his gameplay. And you're the one who pointed out some stat on Pant versus ball bowlers and Pant versus non-ball bowlers. So I think his role in the team is to play the ball bowlers.
Yeah, South Africa had none.
Yeah, they did. I think Rabada.
No, Rabada has hair.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a bad discussion because one of us is going to
Duran, keep in mind, Rabada plays for Delhi Capitals.
Rabada has hair. Okay. Googling it on the side. He definitely has hair.
Okay.
Why did you think he's bald? It's short. It's a bit short.
But why did they come up with the stat about Pant versus ball bowlers?
I don't take any credit for it. It was on Twitter. We retweeted it. So full credit to whoever came up with the original stat, but so strange.
But coming back to your question, yes, Pant has to adapt. That is what his game is going to be. And I think he did the job, right? Like some of his shots were good. Some of his shots were poor, but he got 4 in both cases. So we just have to live with that. That's how he's going to play.
So 174 on the board.
Let's not forget, Thakur was promoted to 3.
Don't say promote. Night watchman.
Thakur is a great batsman.
Okay, night watchman.
By the way, for all the listeners, I made Ashwin watch Thakur's straight drive at Lord's or Oval. I can't remember which one.
You
at
played it?
least
Yeah.
10 times.
You played it over
Till
and
he
over.
admitted that that shot looked like a Sachin Tendulkar straight drive.
No, let me clarify. We'll share the video if we can find. You posted a video of the two straight drives fused into one, like Sachin and Shardul and Sachin. And you like showed it to me and said, who was this? And I said Sachin, and it was Sachin. But anyway, I feel like I was pranked. But 305 runs as a lead. 306 to get, I think it was. Or was that right? 304 runs as a lead, 305 to get. We're going to take another break, come back, talk about how our bowlers finished the job at Centurion, the Fortress Centurion, after the Fortress Gabba, and what's ahead for Team India. So stay tuned. We will be right back.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On this year-end special Think Fast, Varun and Ashwin give their predictions on what lies ahead for the world of business and startups in 2022. We have Manjima Chatterjee with us on Audio Gyan. She is a drama explorer and educator. Kedar and Manjima talk about the new education policy, Bengali plays, and a whole lot more. On a Cock and Bull episode of Cyrus Says, Antrish and I join Cyrus to discuss New Year resolutions, no restaurant food for cops, and COVID self-tests. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk discuss major events and trends in the tech policy space and their expectations for 2022. On Simplified, the gang looks back at how the last 12 months have passed for them personally. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do tell a friend. The word of mouth absolutely is essential to us. Don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms that you've been listening to. And also, I'd like to ask everybody to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels going. You can find all of them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intel. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back.
I feel like you said Fortress Centurion, and it's only happened because of Fortress Gabba. Like, I had never heard that term before.
I didn't coin
No,
it.
I know. People, the media was going crazy saying Fortress Centurion. Well, I'm glad because we won at another fortress.
No, I didn't coin it. I saw it somewhere. I don't know why it came up. We've always known the Centurion is a tough place to win, but it's also not like
I mean, we've never won.
This
is what the media does, right? Once everyone starts enjoying the Fortress Gabba, now every place is going to be a fortress.
I mean, I don't get them, but it still is an unbelievable accomplishment. But let's talk about this again. Early wicket, right? It's the previous innings, Dean Elgar gets out in the 5th. Here, his opening partner, Aiden Markram, gets out in the 9th ball of the inning, bowled by Mohammad Shami. And then there seems like quite a bit of a fight back. And this was a quote unquote cliched captain's innings by Dean Elgar, who I know you have said, does he deserve to be South Africa captain? That's a discussion for a separate day. But unbelievable defense, right? At one point, it really looked like they might either make it or at least be able to bat out the whole day.
I mean, remember, we have witnessed a lot of great day 5 chases. Now, you're talking about a team that may not be the best test team today, but they're playing at home. They're a cohesive unit. They know each other's game, and they've got some young and upcoming talent. So chasing 304 on day 5, especially with, let's say, a 50, 60 runs on day 4, net 250 on day 5 with, let's say, 8 wickets in hand, not a tough thing. I would have been very worried, and I think Indian fans might have been praying for rain because remember, somebody like de Kock also comes at number 6. They have the batting for it. And so it became crucial that we just persisted on day 4 in that last session. And we needed somebody to stand up and outsmart these batsmen. Who better to throw the ball to than Jasprit Bumrah? Remember, he has bowled, I think he got Marsh out in South Africa before lunch with a slow dipping LBW. He got, I think, Ollie Robinson out with a T20 type slower delivery, a cut in England. And so we handed the ball to him. And I remember, Ashwin, you were telling me about how Vander Dussen has done extremely well and he's a great batsman and all that.
He lasted 65 balls.
Yeah. And Bumrah came in and hit an in-swinger that Vander Dussen left and it jagged back into the off stump. Now, it was amazing. Again, Twitter is great. I realized that only the off stump bail was taken off.
Yeah. Just
with that one.
Oh, the leg stump bail stayed
Didn't
on.
move.
I didn't notice that.
And then a few balls later, Maharaj, the 9th watchman, was sent in. And it was important to dismiss him so that we get the upper hand. And we get them at 4 wickets. Bumrah, on the second last ball of the day, after Dean Elgar has tried to waste time, pulls a slanted Yorker to the base of leg stump, where now only the leg stump bail has fallen off.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That is
So that's the skill and the mastery of Jasprit Bumrah.
unbelievable.
He takes Maharaj. They are 94 for 4. Suddenly, the day has ended with India in the upper hand. Bumrah turns around, stares at Dean Elgar to say, kind of, you try delaying tactics, I'm going to be better than you. And that was like that. 20 minutes was spectacular bowling for me.
Can we talk for a second about Bumrah's celebration since you brought it up? So Imran Tahir runs like a 100-meter sprinter on the ground. Mohammad Siraj runs arms in the air. He started doing the Cristiano Ronaldo celebration, which I'm not a huge fan of the fact that he's tall. But let's talk about Bumrah. It's almost not a celebration. It's almost like he turns around, puts his hands out.
So I told you so.
I knew I was going to do this. This is why you threw the ball to me, Skip. Right?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Just it reeks a little bit of arrogance, but I hope he doesn't get
when
there.
you are playing at the level Jasprit Bumrah's playing, can you not have a little bit of arrogance? Are you allowed? I think you're allowed to have a little bit of arrogance.
Yeah, I think you are. I think when you can do anything like take the off stump bail off, leave the leg stump, take the leg stump bail off, leave the off stump, I think you're allowed. So anyway, we love Bumrah, and he was part of my GOAT 11 test of all time. So
yeah. This is all easy to say when things are going well. But of course, very different vibes when things aren't. But obviously, they come back out at 90 something for 4, 94 for 4 on day 5. There was a little bit of risk of some weather, and India basically had to take, the next 6 wickets. Again, one of the 4 wickets that fallen was Maharaj, so the lower order button. So really, it was kind of like a 3 down, and pretty well cleaned up the job pretty effectively, right? It took us to less than 28 overs.
Yep.
Got the final 6 wicket. I will say, you mentioned Ashwin didn't pick up wickets in the first innings. He did finally. Now, he picked up Rabada and Ngidi, neither of who are celebrated batsmen. But he got 2 wickets, right? He has wickets against his name, which is what matters. Shami again looked great. Siraj looked solid. Just a pretty clinical job. We're ending at 191, getting South Africa all out for 191. India wins at the Centurion by 113 runs. Pretty exciting day.
Yeah, very exciting. A little bit of resistance by Bavuma and de Kock, and I give Bavuma a lot of credit for the way he played in this match. But at the end of it, India was too good. Remember, while I did say day 5, we've seen a lot of chases. In majority of day 5 games, the team that's batting or chasing a target above 300 loses. So obviously it stays in your memory, and there are always exceptions. But India had the upper hand going in. Faced a little bit of resistance from South Africa, but our bowlers are good enough. They know that, they just need to keep persisting. And honestly, by that point, we were just worried that rain stays away. So I'm glad they wrapped it up within 2 overs or something after lunch. And kudos to India. Ended 2021 on a great note, setting ourselves up for a historic series win against South Africa. I personally am very excited about the next 2 test matches. And I think this is our best shot.
KL Rahul, man of the match.
Yeah, his century did set it up for us. I think
it was fantastic.
Bumrah and Shami were both great. So if you had to choose one, it's tough. And so I think KL Rahul's century set up the game for us. Ultimately, we won by around the score that he made in the first innings.
I think there were a lot of people who would say, and by that I'm including myself, would say a 5-4 in the first innings and 3 in the second.
Yeah, Shami
is better than a century and then 20 odd with Rahul, right? The century is 5-4, and the 3-wicket haul is equivalent of around about 30-40 runs. So from that perspective, I think Shami could have potentially earned it, but anyway, very difficult to actually to fault anybody. We're just happy Team India won. Super, super exciting. A couple of pieces of news came out, obviously, with Rohit not available for the ODIs. Rahul, who hasn't even been a mainstay for so long, Rahul actually Rahul has been appointed the ODI captain. Kohli's going to play in the series, and Rahul's going to captain.
It's very odd. Yeah. It's very, very, very odd to not see a C next to Virat Kohli's name. But let me say this, that I think this is a good transition for Kohli to just the first 3 games, see how it's like to not be captain. Yeah. He loves Rahul. Yeah. He's going to help Rahul. And I think it had to be done. Once you come out and say that, you're not going to be captain anymore, or BCCI says you're not going to be captain anymore, you can't keep changing your stance. Yeah. So I think Rahul captain, Bumrah vice captain is a great move. Get these guys part of the leadership crew, and we'll figure it out.
And let's talk about the one other piece of news.
Yeah.
Quinton de Kock. What a shocker, right? He plays all 3 formats for South Africa. He's been in the news lately, some things about the Black Lives Matter protest, refusal to take a knee, all of that. He came back in, he apologized, and now he's retired from Test cricket effective immediately. South Africa has to pick a different keeper for even the second and third Test.
Yeah, it's a sad one. Dhoni retired middle of a Test series as well. So I'm not going to blame Quinton de Kock, but I think he's such a great player for South Africa. He's one of the only known names. I don't mean this in a bad way, but if a lot of people today would have put on the TV, let's say our dad was to put on the TV, the only name he may recognize in that top 7 for South Africa is Quinton de Kock.
Yeah.
So think about it from that perspective. Him retiring is a big blow to their team. And I think Harsha Bhogle tweeted that another cricketer chooses white ball over red ball.
Yeah.
So disappointing, but this is what you have to do. You want to extend your career. You want to focus. You have certain goals that you want to accomplish. You have to give up certain things along the way. So
and he's talked about family and wanting personal life. I mean, you play all 3 formats for your country and several of the T20s. It's very, very difficult. But disappointing news. Great win for India still. 2 tests left, Johannesburg and Cape Town. Are you revising your prediction for the test series? I think you said 2-1.
I think I said 2-1. I'm to India. Yeah, to India. I think I'll stick with it. I was going to say 2-0, but I'm going to stick with 2-1.
Okay, so lots of exciting cricket ahead. That brings us pretty much to a wrap. It's been a little bit of a shorter episode. Again, apologies sincerely for the audio quality. We're recording this as best as we can while on the move, on vacation. We were planning to skip this week's episode in the new year, but wanted to be out there to celebrate the Centurion. Huge congratulations to Team India and to all the fans. We'll be back, I think, next week as normal. Maybe all 3 of us will be on finally. We'll see how we can manage time zones. But here's to India conquering the next. I don't know if the Joburg and Cape Town are considered fortresses, but let's make our way to those grounds and try to pull up wins there. Varun, thanks for joining me to debrief. Enjoy the rest of the holiday, and we will, wishing all our listeners a happy new year. We will talk to everybody soon. Thanks for listening.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Girala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood,
Get accustomed to womanhood.
enjoy the experience of sisterhood,
Might get to wifehood
or not, choose motherhood,
or not. You'll learn to define your personhood.
earn a livelihood,
Change the neighborhood.
and get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Ritasha,
And me, Ayushi,
on a journey from station starting point.
to station, what now?
Next station, Pudin station, and hopefully Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.